Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. My name's Darren. I work the night shift at the Grand Westfield Hotel, one of those luxury towers downtown that always smells like lemon and fresh linen, even at 3 in the morning. Nothing exciting ever happened here, not until last night. I clocked in at 11 p.m., same as usual. The lobby was quiet, bathed in soft amber light, the kind that makes even marble floors look cozy. My manager, Shelley, handed me the keys and said something about an odd call earlier from one of the guests on the 12th floor. She didn't give me the details, just waved it off like it was probably a prank. I should have pressed for more. The first few hours were routine. I restocked the complimentary coffee station, scanned the CCTV monitors, and nodded at the occasional guest coming in from the bars. At 1:37 a.m., something strange showed up on the feed. Camera 12, service hallway behind the kitchens, flickered like it had bad wiring. When it cleared, I saw a man stumbling, twitching, like he couldn't control his own legs. He slammed into the wall, stood up slowly, then just stared at the lens. I radioed security. No answer. That wasn't too odd. They took their breaks in the lower level where reception was bad, but something about the man's eyes on the screen made my stomach twist. He didn't blink. He didn't move. Just stared. I zoomed in and noticed dark smudges across his chest and sleeves. At first, I thought he'd spilled something, but the pattern was too messy, random, like he'd been splattered. I was about to call up to Shelley when the camera cut out. Static. A second later, camera 7, loading dock, buzzed to life. Another person, a woman this time. She wasn't moving either, just standing behind the dumpsters like she was waiting for something. I didn't know it yet, but that was when the first 12 hours began. Around 2:10 a.m., the power dipped. Not all the way down, just a flicker. The elevators paused mid-floor, lights in the lobby blinked, and for a second, the music cut out. Then everything came back. That's when the phone started ringing. First, room 1204, then 807, then 315. All back to back, like a chain reaction. Guests calling in about loud noises in the hallway, thudding, scratching. One guy even said someone was trying to get in through the balcony, which didn't make sense because that side of the building faces a sheer drop. I answered as fast as I could, tried to keep my voice calm. "Yes, sir, I'll send someone to check it out." "I understand, ma'am. Please stay inside and lock the door." But I was alone at the front desk, no security, no maintenance crew, and I didn't want to admit I had no idea what was happening. Around 2:40, I decided to check the 12th floor myself. Dumb move, I know, but at the time, I felt like the only choice. The elevator was slow. Each ding of a passing floor made my skin crawl. I kept imagining what I'd find when the doors opened. The hallway was empty when I stepped out, too quiet. The carpets muffled everything, even the nervous click of my shoes. I passed 1201, 1202, and then I heard it, a dragging sound. It came from the far end, near 1214. Something scraping along the floor, slow and steady. I inched forward, peeking around the corner. There was a man crouched near the vending machine. He was barefoot, shirtless, and smeared with something dark. His shoulders twitched like he was sobbing, but there was no sound. He didn't turn when I called out, "Sir, you okay?" No answer. I took another step. That's when he bolted upright and turned. His mouth hung open, but not to speak. His jaw wasn't right. It was loose, like it had been dislocated. His skin was pale, mottled, and something black bubbled at the corners of his mouth. He screamed. No, not a scream, a kind of guttural howl, raw and broken. He lunged, but his legs failed him and he fell, thrashing, grabbing at the carpet. I ran. I hit the elevator button a dozen times, heart pounding like it was trying to punch through my ribs. When the doors opened, I slammed the L button and held my breath. As they closed, I saw two more shapes rounding the corner toward the vending machine. And I realized the 12th floor wasn't safe anymore. I sprinted straight from the elevator to the back office and locked the door behind me. I didn't even look around to see if anyone had followed me down. Just slammed the bolt and leaned against the cool metal with both palms, breathing so hard I thought I might pass out. What I saw on that 12th floor, it wasn't someone sick or hurt, it wasn't someone high or acting out. There was no mistaking it. Something was wrong. Deeply, horribly wrong. My hands were shaking as I reached for the phone. First, I tried the security line again, still nothing. Then I dialed Shelley's extension. No answer. Finally, I picked up my personal phone and called 911. That's when it hit me. No signal. I stared at the screen in disbelief, then moved to the window and held the phone up like that would help. One bar blinked to life and then vanished. The landlines were dead too. The hotel had backup systems in place. Generator, emergency lights, even a panic button under the desk that connected directly to the downtown precinct. I pressed it. Nothing happened. It was like the building was slowly disconnecting from the outside world, one cable at a time. 2:58 a.m. I'll never forget that time because that's when I first heard the screaming downstairs. Not guests, at least not just guests. It was deeper, layered. A mix of cries, running footsteps, glass shattering, a chair toppling, and then the unmistakable sound of someone, or something, slamming into a wall hard enough to crack it. The lobby. I grabbed the old radio on the shelf, the one usually used for lost luggage calls, and switched through channels. Most were static. One crackled faintly with a voice. West Tower. Can't see them, but we hear them. Don't go near. The message cut out. I stared at the receiver in my hand and then heard another crash, closer this time. I crept to the small security monitor embedded into the office wall. The lobby was chaos. Two guests were pinned between the front desk and a toppled luggage cart. One of them, a man in a bathrobe, was kicking frantically at a figure crawling toward him. I say crawling because the thing's legs didn't seem to work. It dragged itself forward using its arms, mouth open, eyes wide and blank like cracked porcelain. Behind it, more shadows moved, people staggering through the broken glass of the front doors. How had they gotten in? I hadn't seen them arrive. No alarm had gone off. The front entry should have been locked. I watched helplessly as the man screamed again, the camera catching a glimpse of his face before it cut to static. My stomach turned. I stayed locked in the office for what felt like an hour but was probably just minutes. Every noise outside the door sent a jolt through me. I checked my watch, 3:17 a.m. That's when I remembered. The stairwells had manual locks. You could wedge them shut from the inside with the emergency bar, designed for fire drills and evacuation protocols. If anyone was still alive in the building, they'd need safe zones. I couldn't just sit and wait. I crept back out into the lobby, crouched low behind the counter. The air was sharp with the scent of something sour and metallic. I didn't look too hard at the shapes sprawled across the floor. I didn't want to know. I made it to the back hallway and took the emergency stairs up to floor 6. Guest reports had come from 807 and 315, so I figured anything above the 5th floor might already be compromised. The 6th floor was quiet when I stepped out. Too quiet, like the building itself was holding its breath. I found a maintenance cart and used the metal bar to jam the stairwell door. If those things followed sound, I didn't want them getting a straight shot up or down the stairs. I started knocking on doors. "Hello, hotel staff. If you can hear me, please come out. Stay quiet. Stay together." At first, nothing. But then room 610 opened just a crack. A woman peeked out, eyes wide and red-rimmed. "You're alive," she whispered. "Yeah," I said, surprised at how dry my throat felt. "You?" She nodded and pulled the door wider. 2 kids were huddled on the bed behind her. A boy and a girl, maybe 10 or 11. They looked terrified. "My name's Darren," I said. "We're going to try and make this floor safe. Is your door locked?" She nodded again. "Good. Stay put. If you hear anything, don't open for anyone unless it's me." She hesitated. "What's happening?" I looked her in the eye and gave the only honest answer I had. "I don't know." I spent the next 20 minutes going door to door. Some rooms were empty, others had guests too scared to leave. A few didn't answer at all. By 3:45 a.m., I'd found 9 survivors on the 6th floor. We gathered quietly in the hallway, forming a little group of strangers clinging to the one thing that still made sense: each other. We jammed both ends of the hallway with furniture and carts, reinforced the stairwell doors, and blocked the elevators. We didn't have weapons, just a few kitchen knives from a guest's room and a broken broom handle I found in the janitor's closet. Then the lights went out. Just like that. No flicker, no warning. 1 second we were huddled in dim hallway lighting. The next, pitch black silence. Someone gasped. A kid whimpered. I felt for my pocket flashlight and clicked it on. The beam hit the hallway wall, and something moved at the far end. Scratching. Not footsteps, scratching. Then the unmistakable sound of metal bending. They'd found us. The sound of metal twisting was like nails being pulled from a wall, slow, deliberate, and deeply wrong. The flashlight trembled in my hand as I aimed it toward the stairwell door we'd barricaded with carts and a supply shelf. One of the carts was shaking. Something was pushing against the other side. I stepped in front of the guests, heart racing. "Stay back, quiet." The woman from 610 hugged her kids close, whispering something I couldn't hear. A man beside her, must have been from one of the higher rooms, tightened his grip on a fire extinguisher. It was all we had. I had a broom handle. The cart screeched an inch across the floor. I raised the flashlight beam again just in time to see fingers. Pale, grayish, twitching fingers, curling around the edge of the stairwell door. They didn't knock. They didn't say a word. Just pushed. Then a face appeared through the gap. No, not a face. A mask of what used to be a man. Sunken eyes, mouth hanging slack, skin puckered with strange black lines running beneath it like veins soaked in ink. His head twisted sideways at an angle that should have snapped his neck. Behind him, more shadows loomed. "Back into the rooms," I whispered harshly. "Now!" Everyone scattered. I stayed by the door, holding the broomstick like it would somehow be enough. I couldn't let them in, but I wasn't fast enough. The door burst open, slamming the cart aside. One of them crawled in, legs dragging uselessly behind him. Another tumbled over the shelf like a puppet with its strings cut. They didn't care about broken bones or bruises. They didn't even feel it. The hallway filled with the sound of scraping limbs and snarling breath. One of the guests screamed from behind a door. I swung. The broomstick cracked across one's face, but it barely slowed. I hit him again, harder. He stumbled just long enough for me to drag the emergency extinguisher from the wall and smash it into his head. That worked. He went down in a twitching heap, motionless. But more were crawling in. 4, 5. I ran. I made it back to room 610, where the woman was trying to hold the door against something thudding into it from outside. I threw my weight against it with her, locking the deadbolt and bracing a chair underneath. Inside, the kids were crying silently, clutching each other. The window showed a slice of the city, dark, quiet, strange. Lights were off across the skyline. Some buildings flickered faintly, like their systems were shorting out. I spotted a few fires burning in the distance. One structure collapsed completely, its smoke spiraling upward like a signal. The whole city was falling apart. "How long will the door hold?" the woman asked. I didn't answer. Something scraped across the hallway again. Then, silence. Just breathing. That's when I realized the breathing wasn't ours. It was coming from the vent. I moved toward the grate slowly, heart pounding in my throat. The light beam flicked across the metal slats, catching something wrong. Movement. Not rats, not debris. A hand, pale and twitching. Then an eye. Someone, or something, was crawling through the air system. I backed away just as the grate buckled. It burst open and one of them dropped into the room, landing on all fours with a horrible thud. Its arms were too long, its spine bent at a strange angle. The kid screamed. I lunged and tackled it before it could stand. It hissed, mouth stretching wide, head jerking side to side like it didn't know which of us to grab first. I grabbed the lamp from the nightstand and smashed it into its head over and over until it stopped moving. Glass cut my hands. I didn't care. The woman pulled the kids into the bathroom and locked the door. I sat there, on the floor next to the thing I had just stopped, chest heaving, hands shaking. What were they? How many more were there? And why were they getting smarter? I needed to regroup. If the vents weren't safe, nowhere was. I pulled the phone from the wall, still dead. Then I remembered the house radio I'd left on the floor in the hallway. I had to go back out there. I opened the door slowly. The hallway was still. The shapes had retreated. But for how long? I crept out, stepping around a smear of dark streaks that led toward the elevator. The radio was right where I dropped it. I snatched it up, clicked through channels. More static. Then, anyone? Copy? Anyone still in the building? My breath caught. I pressed the button. "This is Darren. Night staff, 6th floor. I have survivors." Static, then. "We're in the security hub, basement level, locked in. Monitors still working. We see you." I looked up at the hallway camera. A tiny green light blinked. "You're not alone. Get to the freight elevator. We'll open it when you're close." I almost cried. "Understood," I said. "I'm coming." I gathered the woman and her kids, then knocked quietly on the other rooms, gathering anyone who could still move. 6 of us total now. That's all that remained from over 30 rooms. We moved together through the 6th-floor hallway like shadows, avoiding the areas we'd seen the creatures moving through. I had the extinguisher. The other man had a fireplace poker from a luxury suite. We reached the staff stairs again, barricaded earlier. I unwedged the bar. The door creaked open. The stairwell was dark. No movement. We began descending, floor by floor. 5th, 4th, 3rd. A sound echoed below us, a dragging step. And then voices, but not normal ones. Gurgled, layered, repeating the same syllables over and over like they were trying to mimic something they'd heard. Words without meaning. The guests behind me froze. "Keep moving," I whispered. "Don't stop." We reached the ground level and slipped into the service corridor. I radioed again. "We're here." The metal freight elevator doors groaned open slowly at the end of the corridor. The red emergency light inside painted everything in sickly crimson. We piled in. The doors closed. The elevator dropped. I didn't breathe until it stopped. When the doors opened again, we were in the basement. 2 people stood waiting with flashlights and radios. A security guard I recognized, Jose, and another guest I'd seen once or twice, maybe from the conference wing. "Inside," Jose said. "Quick." We filed into the room and locked the door behind us. Screens lit the walls, showing every part of the hotel. What we saw made my blood run cold. The building wasn't just being attacked, it was being hunted. And we were the only ones left. The security room was barely larger than a supply closet, packed tight with equipment racks, monitors, and the sharp humming buzz of too much electricity in a space that wasn't designed for company. It smelled like sweat, burnt coffee, and something coppery beneath it all. We sealed the door with 2 metal rods across the handle, standard security protocol, one I was suddenly very glad Jose had remembered. The kids from room 610 clung to their mother, while the rest of us stared at the wall of monitors. Every floor flickered in black and white footage, the hotel's outdated camera system painting the disaster like some low-budget horror reel. Shadows lurched and twitched across hallways. Shapes moved with stiff, jerking motions. Some crawled on all fours, some wandered aimlessly, but some were gathering. I watched in frozen silence as 4 figures on the 3rd floor came together and began stacking furniture. They were barricading one end of the hallway, coordinated. That wasn't random, that wasn't instinct. That was intelligence. Jose pointed at another screen. "West stairwell, 3rd floor, see that?" One of the things was slamming its head repeatedly into the wall. Not just anywhere a camera. It had already taken out 2 others in the past 10 minutes. I swallowed hard. They know they're being watched. The guest next to me, a man in a wrinkled dress shirt with a hotel pen still clipped to his pocket, muttered, "This isn't an infection. It's something else." We all went quiet. The lights overhead flickered. Jose clicked his radio, trying a wideband channel. "To anyone still alive in the building, this is Security Hub 3, basement level, reinforced. We have survivors." Nothing. Then a voice. "You're not safe." But it didn't sound like a person. The pitch was all wrong, too smooth, no static, just a single statement, flat and final. Then silence again. The room felt 10 degrees colder after that. Time slowed. The monitor clocks ticked past 4:20 a.m. Only a few hours left until sunrise, if sunrise would change anything. We took shifts watching the cameras while the others rested against the walls. I sat beside the boy from room 610. He kept staring at the static-filled screen, eyes wide. "Do they eat people?" he asked suddenly. I hesitated, thinking about what YouTube would and wouldn't want me to say. I kept it simple. "They're not like us. That's all we know." He nodded slowly, then whispered, "One of them had on a bellhop uniform." I didn't answer. I couldn't. He was right. I'd seen it too. A crackling noise came from one of the speakers above the monitors, connected to the PA system, the one we could use to make announcements to guests, but none of us had touched it. Then came a sound. Humming. A low, eerie tune, almost like a lullaby, off-key, distant, impossible to identify. Jose jumped up and cut power to the speaker. That wasn't us. We stared at each other, silent. Then the elevator alert buzzed. Someone or something had just called the main elevator from the top floor. That elevator hadn't worked since the surge. "What the heck is using it?" the dress shirt man muttered. We flipped the feed to the elevator cam. The screen flickered. Then came an image that made my stomach clench. Nothing in the elevator, empty. Just faint scratches on the mirrored wall, long ones, like claws. Then the cam died. At 4:48 a.m., the power grid surged. Lights blew out one by one across the basement hallway, and the main system overloaded. The monitors fizzled one after another until we were staring at static and blank screens. The backup battery in the security room would last maybe 20 minutes if we were lucky. It left us with nothing. No cameras, no PA, no idea what was going on above. The humming returned. This time, no speaker, no tech. It was in the walls. We all heard it. A low, droning hum, barely human. It vibrated through the metal plating, through the vents, through our bones. "It's calling them," I whispered. Jose turned, face pale. "We have to move, now." We packed up what we could, 2 flashlights, 1 remaining fire extinguisher, a security baton, and my splintered broom handle. The freight elevator couldn't be trusted. We'd have to go through the maintenance tunnel under the laundry wing. Leads to the parking garage. From there, maybe we could get outside. No one said it, but we were all thinking the same thing, if there was still a city to escape to. We exited into the basement hallway. It was flooded in red light, silent and claustrophobic. One of the kids whimpered. "Stay close," I said. "No noise, no light unless we have to." We moved as one, step by step. Every footfall echoed like thunder. Halfway down the hall, we passed an open utility door. I glanced inside. Frozen. Inside stood one of them. Motionless. Its eyes were shut, its head tilted upward, arms slack, like it was sleeping standing up. We stopped. I held up my hand slowly. Everyone froze. The thing didn't move. We edged past it inch by inch, breath held. I could hear the soft wheeze of its breath, like air escaping from a balloon. 10 feet. 5. 1. Then the little girl sneezed. The thing's eyes snapped open. It turned, but not toward her, toward me. I shouted, "Run!" and swung the broom handle. It connected with its arm, knocking it back just long enough for the others to bolt down the hallway. It shrieked, not a scream, a signal. From around the corner came more, 3, 4, maybe more, all crawling, sprinting, dragging themselves forward. I ran. We reached the tunnel access door and slammed it shut just as the first one hit it full force from the other side. The door shook on its hinges. The tunnel was narrow and dark, wet. Pipes lined to the ceiling, and water dripped from somewhere deep inside. It smelled like mildew and rust. Jose led the way with his flashlight. The humming followed us, growing louder. Something was coming through the pipes. We reached the garage just before the emergency battery finally died. The door creaked open to reveal a massive underground space filled with silent cars, flickering emergency lights, and, miraculously, a security SUV parked near the exit ramp. The keys hung from the ignition. It felt too good to be true. I checked the back, empty. "Everyone in," I ordered, "now." As the last door slammed shut, we heard Ita's voice clear and calm, echoing from the tunnel. "Not human, not robotic. Just wrong. You don't belong here." Jose turned the key. The engine roared to life. The garage lights shut off completely. Shapes surged forward from the dark. I shouted, "Go!" The SUV peeled out, tires screeching as we barreled toward the exit. The gate was down. Jose didn't stop. The truck crashed through it in a rain of sparks and metal. We burst into the early morning gloom. Gray skies, empty streets, fires in the distance. And the hotel behind us? The windows lit up one by one, not with lights but with faces, watching us leave, smiling. We didn't speak for the first 10 minutes. The SUV tore through empty streets under a sky that had never looked more alien. A sickly haze hung low, and the sun, if it had risen at all, was trapped behind a wall of smoke and dust. Fires burned in the distance. Alarms blared from unseen corners. Nothing moved on the sidewalks. No cars, no people. Just an overwhelming silence that pressed in on us like a lid. Then the little boy asked the question we were all thinking. Where is everybody? I didn't know how to answer. Jose drove like he'd been waiting for this moment his entire life. Calm, steady, focused. The woman from room 610 held her children close, whispering soft reassurances. The other guest, the one in the dress shirt, just stared out the window, knuckles white on the door handle. I turned on the radio. Static. I flipped stations. More static. Then, briefly, a voice. Not contain. Repeat. Stay away from... Then gone again. No channel lasted more than a second. They must have hit the towers, Jose said. Whatever's causing this, it's bigger than the hotel. Bigger than the city, maybe. We passed a school. The windows were shattered. Desks piled against the front doors. Something had broken out, not in. Farther ahead, we came across a traffic jam, but no people. The car doors were open, as if everyone had left in a hurry. Luggage, phones, even shoes. Turn here, I said. Jose swerved down a side street. We needed a plan. Somewhere safe to regroup, figure out next steps. There's an old mall north of here, I told him. Underground parking, reinforced gates. And it has an emergency broadcast system in the security office. I used to do night jobs there. He nodded. Good enough. We headed north. The city looked like it had been frozen mid-scream. Every corner told a story no one was left to tell. A bus sat sideways in an intersection. Spray paint across its side read, "Do not trust the silence." We kept moving. That's when we saw the plane. A commercial airliner, low, too low. It roared overhead, one engine sputtering. We watched in horror as it banked hard to the left and vanished behind a cluster of buildings. Then the sound, a rumble, a distant crash that rolled across the city like thunder. A tower of smoke rose in the distance. Air traffic control must be gone, Jose whispered. I didn't respond. My eyes were locked on something else. Movement on a rooftop 3 blocks away. 4 figures, watching us. Still as statues. Then one raised its hand, waved. The mall came into view by 6:10 a.m. It looked abandoned. Graffiti across the windows, metal gates halfway pulled down. A parking sign hung crooked above the entrance, blinking uselessly. Jose rammed the gate with the SUV. It buckled and gave way. We rolled into the dark underground lot, headlights slicing through the dust. No movement. No bodies. Just silence. We parked near a maintenance door. I led the way with a flashlight, finding the keycard panel I remembered from years ago. Dead. No power. I pried the panel off, sparked 2 wires together. The lock clicked. Inside, the air was thick and stale. We moved quickly, past old storage rooms and rusting escalators. The mall had been closed for years, but its bones were solid. Reinforced shutters, thick walls, no windows on the lower levels. We reached the old security hub on the 2nd floor. Metal doors, double locked. I used my old access key. A miracle. It still worked. We stepped inside. Monitors covered one wall. A backup generator in the corner hummed faintly. And best of all, a two-way radio tower, one of the big ones. Jose flipped switches. Power surged. We were back online. He sent out a broad-range broadcast. "This is Emergency Station 7, broadcasting from the Westgate Mall. Survivors present, coordinates available. If you're out there, respond." Nothing. Then, after a long pause, static twisted into sound. "You shouldn't be there." Not a warning. A statement. The voice didn't sound human. It echoed strangely, like it wasn't made by a mouth. "You've seen them. You felt it. You're marked." Silence. Then one final sentence. "You brought them with you." That's when the lights cut out. Total darkness. The hum of the generator was gone. The kids began to cry. "Flashlights!" I shouted. Jose yanked open the backup drawer, but all the batteries were missing. Every flashlight was dead. Even my phone was suddenly drained. Something had drained everything. Then banging. From the lower levels. Not fists, feet. Many of them. Running in perfect sync. Up the escalators, toward us. We slammed the door, locked it tight, pushed a metal filing cabinet against it. No windows, no exits. We were trapped. Then the wall speaker crackled again. The voice was back. "We are already inside?" I turned to the vent. It was open, but not cut or forced, unscrewed from the inside. It took every ounce of courage I had not to scream. The vent cover lay on the ground. Screws neatly placed beside it in a perfect line. No damage, no tool marks, just removed. Like someone had been living inside the walls. I stepped back, my eyes locked on the dark square that led into the air ducts. A whisper of cold air flowed out. Not the kind you feel on your skin, more like one that brushes against your thoughts. The kids were crying now. Their mother held them tight, eyes wide, breathing fast. Jose gripped his security baton. "We have to get out of this room, now." He was right. That voice, it didn't just come through speakers. It didn't need electricity. It was already inside our heads. I kicked open the emergency supply locker, flares, a few water bottles, a wind-up flashlight. I grabbed everything. Then the banging started again, but not on the door, from inside the ceiling. The metal tiles above us shook slightly, ever so gently, like something was crawling across them. Scraping, waiting, then laughter, a soft chuckle echoing all around. It wasn't loud, but somehow it filled the entire room. Not joyful, not angry, just amused. Like this was all a game. We forced the door open and fled into the mall corridor. Jose held the wind-up flashlight, turning the crank as we moved. The beam was weak but steady. Every display window we passed held mannequins draped in plastic. Some had fallen, others had moved. I don't mean that figuratively. One was lying face down in the middle of the hallway. And I swear it wasn't there when we passed earlier. We kept going. The mall's main atrium came into view. A vast, echoing chamber with fountains that hadn't worked in years, and skylights that barely let in any light now. That's when we saw them. Silhouettes. Standing at the top level, dozens. Some stood perfectly still, their faces turned toward us. Others twitched, just slightly, like puppets waiting for strings. And they weren't alone. A shape was among them. Taller than the rest. Almost touching the ceiling. Cloaked in what looked like torn hotel linens, stitched together with cable wire. I couldn't make out its face, but it leaned forward, slowly, like it was sniffing the air. Then it raised one long arm-like limb and pointed. At me. We ran. Down a side corridor. Past empty kiosks and shuttered food court stalls. I turned to Jose. Maintenance tunnels behind the candy shop. He nodded and veered right. I kicked open the side gate and led them into the narrow service hallways used by janitors and nighttime staff. The walls were peeling. Pipes hissed with steam. We were halfway through when a sudden burst of cold air hit us. Not normal cold. Memory cold. I could smell the hotel again. That awful floral lobby scent. The sound of the lobby music. I heard the ding of the front desk bell. But we weren't there. Not anymore. We're being pulled back, I muttered. It's trying to make us return. Jose shook his head. It's not a memory. It's copying, reconstructing places we've been. I didn't want to believe it, but deep down I knew he was right. We turned a corner and nearly stumbled into a wall that shouldn't have been there. It wasn't concrete. It was glass. A full section of the maintenance tunnel had been converted into a replica of the hotel lobby. Perfect. Right down to the front desk sign-in sheet and the bowl of complimentary mints. But everything was slightly off. The light bulbs flickered too fast. The clock ticked backwards. The guest registry had our names already signed in. Even the names of the kids. We backed away slowly. Then the floor beneath us creaked. Tiles cracked. Something rose from below. A shape made of melted suits, splintered luggage, and twisted staff uniforms. A face stretched over it like plastic wrap, smiling too wide. "Back!" Jose barked. "Back!" I tossed a flare at it. The light made it shriek, not from pain but like it was being mocked. Still, it stopped moving. Just stood there, watching. We ran again. Finally, we reached the loading dock. The steel door was open just a crack, enough to slip through one by one. Outside, the world had changed again. Ash fell from the sky like snow. The horizon glowed orange. And in the distance, beyond the edge of the city, we saw it. A spire. It hadn't been there before. Black, twisted, taller than anything in the skyline, and wrapped around it people, climbing, crawling, or maybe being pulled. None of us spoke. We just stared. Until the youngest kid whispered, "It's like it's watching everything." And I realized something chilling. It wasn't just the spire. All the eyes we'd seen, the windows, the mannequins, the reflections, they weren't metaphors. They were real. And something on the other side was using them. We loaded into an abandoned city transit van left near the dock, keys in the ignition, gas tank half full. Jose turned the engine. It sputtered but caught. We drove north. No idea where we were going. Only that we had to keep moving. Because whatever this was, it didn't want us dead. It wanted us changed. And we'd already stayed too long. We drove until the city turned into shadows. The skyline disappeared behind low hills and burned-out service stations. Jose kept the van moving, even as the roads cracked and twisted beneath us. Asphalt had split in places, like something had tried to punch up through the ground. And the sky. The sky was wrong. Clouds didn't drift anymore. They pulsed, flickered. Once, I saw one blink, like an eye. We didn't speak for a long time. There were no other vehicles, no birds, no aircraft, no power lines. Just empty road and static humming through the van's dashboard speakers, even though the radio was off. Then the youngest girl, barely 6, pointed out the front window. "Why is the moon on the road?" We looked. She was right. A perfect white circle shimmered on the pavement just ahead, glowing faintly like a puddle of light. It wasn't a reflection. There was no moon above us. It was just there, painted into reality like an open door no one asked for. Jose steered around it without a word. But the moment we passed, the engine coughed. The dashboard lights flickered. And for a split second, every screen in the van came on. The radio, the GPS, the blank rear camera monitor. All showing the same thing, our hotel lobby. Empty, still, frozen in time, except for one change. There was someone behind the front desk now, a shape in the uniform I'd worn, and it was smiling at the camera. I reached forward and yanked the battery line from the GPS. All the screens went dark again. "We can't stop," Jose muttered. "If we stop, we won't start again," I finished. Because it wasn't just watching anymore. It was reaching, taking pieces of us, piece by piece, memory by memory, place by place, like building blocks for something bigger. The tower, the lobby, the vent, the mannequins. All part of the same reconstruction, and we were the blueprint. Around 7:15 a.m., we found a small radio relay station. Concrete bunker. Military-grade fencing, no signs of entry. Locked tight, but not broken. That was promising. We pried open the emergency panel and rerouted power from the van's battery to the station's grid. Lights buzzed on. Old computers booted up with the whine of forgotten machinery. A map of the region flickered to life across a wall-sized screen. Red dots marked major broadcast points. Most were crossed out, all except one. Relay Point K9, Jose read. That's north, way out in the hills, still marked green. If we could reach it, we could send a full-band transmission across state lines. Maybe farther. Maybe even call for help, if anyone was left to answer. I sat down at a console and tried accessing the emergency frequency band. Nothing at first, then static. Then, one line of text appeared on the monitor. You were never supposed to leave. I stood up so fast the chair toppled. The screen blinked once. New text. But you can come back. Then a string of numbers. Coordinates. They weren't for Relay Point K9. They were for the hotel. The power suddenly cut out again. Jose cursed and went to check the van's battery rig. That's when I heard it. Footsteps from the hallway. Not heavy, not fast. Measured. Someone, or something, walking with purpose. I grabbed a wrench and moved toward the sound. Jose's voice came from the front. All clear here. But I wasn't hearing it from that direction. The voice was coming from the back wall, through the vent. The same voice, perfect, word for word. All clear here. Except Jose wasn't speaking anymore. He was staring at me, mouth shut. We sealed the station and left in silence. Whatever we were dealing with, it wasn't limited to places. It could mimic us now, our voices, maybe even our faces. We had to get to Relay Point K9 before it could reach us again. We took a dirt road winding up the hillside. Trees grew thin. Fog closed in. The world shrank down to the narrow beam of our headlights. Then, without warning, the van braked. Jose held up a hand. Do you hear that? I listened. A static. Soft, distant. Coming from the trees. Not from devices. From the trees themselves. The leaves were rustling in patterns, rhythmic, pulsing. Like radio interference, but alive. We pushed on. At 7:46 a.m., we reached Relay Point K9, a narrow building atop a ridge surrounded by thick antenna arrays. It looked untouched, as if the chaos had politely skipped over it. We sprinted inside. Backup generators still worked, consoles glowed. A microphone on the central desk blinked red. Jose activated the wideband signal. This is a message to any nearby relay stations or emergency units. Survivors present, requesting evacuation. Coordinates transmitting now. We waited. 5 seconds. 10. Then a reply. Confirmed, receiving signal, sending response team. Relief hit like a tidal wave. We looked at each other. Someone was out there. Someone real. The voice continued. Please remain at your location. You are safe. Repeat, you are safe. I almost collapsed from exhaustion. Then it said something strange. Estimated arrival time, 0 minutes. What? Jose whispered. The radio crackled again. Evacuation team already inside the structure. Please open the door. We looked at the console. Every door was still locked. Already inside, I muttered. Then the lights began to flicker in a pattern. Dot, dot, dot. Dash, dash, dash. Dot, dot, dot. Morse code. SOS. From the building itself, Jose reached for the door controls. I stopped him. Don't. We have to. Think about it. They said they were outside, then inside, but no one came in. I stared at the console. If they're in here, then who answered the signal? The walls began to hum. The screens switched to live feed. Every monitor showed the same image, or the hotel lobby, except this time it wasn't empty. Hundreds of guests stood still in the atrium, eyes glowing white, all facing the front desk. And behind the desk was me. Jose slammed the monitor with his palm. The screen cracked. The image flickered once, then froze. My face, my other face, still smiling from behind that twisted hotel front desk. We backed away from the control panel. The relay station lights dimmed, and a low, deep vibration settled in the floor beneath our boots. Not like an earthquake, more like something awakening deep underground. I looked around. The layout of the relay station. It wasn't quite the same anymore. The walls were closer. The ceiling had dropped slightly. The color of the lights shifted, now casting a faint golden hue, exactly like the lobby chandeliers in the hotel. It wasn't just mimicking us. It was reshaping reality around us, folding space like paper, turning safe places into new rooms of its ever-growing maze. Jose, I whispered, we're inside it again. It brought us back. No, he said, voice tight, we never left. And I believed him. I remembered the vent cover, the mannequins, the way the tower rose overnight, the voices echoing inside screens that weren't even on. We'd been led in circles, kept running, fighting, surviving, exactly as it wanted. The truth was never about escape. It was about wearing us down, turning us into pieces that fit. I grabbed the wind-up flashlight and cranked it hard until the bulb flickered back to life. Check the exit, I said. Jose nodded and moved toward the heavy steel doors at the far end of the station. He pulled the lever. Nothing. Then click, the locks disengaged. Wind howled through the cracks as he pushed it open. But the world outside was no longer hills or trees. It was carpeted, striped red and gold, just like the halls outside the hotel ballroom. Except now, it stretched for miles. Endless, perfect, artificial. A hallway made from memory. At the far end, a bell rang. Ding. I slammed the door shut. We're not going out there, I said. Jose shook his head. Then where? I turned slowly, staring at the blank monitors. Static danced across them now like mist behind glass. And then I remembered the flare. I had one left, from the emergency locker back in the mall. I dug into my bag, pulled it out, and lit it. The flare hissed, bright red light flooding the room. The hum in the walls stopped. For a moment, The illusion cracked. The floor wasn't carpet. The hallway vanished. The walls stretched wide again. Even screens went black, like something had recoiled from the fire. I turned to Jose. If we can find where this thing's power begins, its core, we burn it out. We made our way deeper into the building, moving through utility corridors no blueprint ever mentioned. Each room we entered felt wrong. Furniture half melted into the walls, signs with no text, clocks with no hands. In one hallway, a cleaning cart rolled past us on its own. Not fast, not threatening, just slowly, as if on schedule. As if the hotel itself was still running operations. I heard a voice overhead. Familiar, mine. Guest checkout delayed. Room reassignment in progress. Jose looked like he was about to break. We're trapped in a loop. Maybe, I said. But even loops have a starting point. We found a stairwell, not modern concrete. This one had old wallpaper, rusted rails, and a velvet runner so stained it looked centuries old. We climbed. Each step felt heavier, like the building didn't want us getting higher. At the top, we found a door marked Room 000. It opened before we touched it. Inside was a space the size of a football field, filled with mirrors. Some cracked, some melted. Each showed moments, me at the front desk, Jose helping guests escape, the children crying in the supply room. Us standing outside the hotel as ash fell, over and over, not memories. Feeds live. Endless copies of us in different variations, all trapped in different versions of this place. It wasn't just one hotel. It was 1,000 stacked atop each other. A recursive spiral, and in the center of the room, one last screen. A blinking cursor. And a prompt. Would you like to check out now? Jose stepped forward. Say no, I whispered. He didn't. He said yes. The mirror shattered. The floor vanished. I fell, not down, but inward, like being pulled into myself. 1,000 whispers echoed through the darkness, all in my voice. You left the door unlocked. You didn't follow the rules. You survived 12 hours. But this hotel was never meant to be escaped. Only observed, only repeated. I woke up on a couch. Lobby music playing softly, faint floral scent in the air. I was wearing my uniform again. The front desk bell sat polished and waiting. Jose was gone. No guests. No screams. No clocks. Just silence. I stood slowly, looked around, and in the far mirror on the wall I saw myself. But the version looking back winked. Now I write this, hoping someone will hear it. Not to warn you. It's already too late for that. If you stayed in a place where time feels off, if you've heard voices through things that shouldn't speak, if you've looked into a hallway and seen it breathe, you're not in your world anymore. You're on the guest list now. And checkout? Checkout was never real. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.